I can't do this anymore. The text message glowed on my phone screen at 11:47 p.m. I stared at it, sitting in the parking lot of the grocery store where I'd just bought ingredients for the dinner I was planning to cook for us tomorrow. 3 years together, a ring on my finger for 6 months. And this was how it ended, 14 words sent while I was choosing between pasta shapes. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. Something about the casual cruelty of it felt almost predictable, like I'd been waiting for this shoe to drop without realizing it. I set my phone face down on the passenger seat and drove home in silence. The engagement ring caught the streetlights as I gripped the steering wheel. I would give him until morning to explain. Maybe there was context I was missing. Maybe his phone had been hacked. Maybe I was in a nightmare I'd wake up from. I wasn't. My name is Olivia Chen, and I'm 32 years old. Until that text message, I thought I had my life figured out. I worked as a senior accountant at Westbridge Financial, a job I'd earned through night classes while working full-time. My fiancé, Tyler Morrison, was a marketing consultant who'd swept me off my feet at a mutual friend's barbecue 3 years ago. Tyler was charming in that effortless way some people are. He remembered small details about conversations. He brought me coffee without being asked. When he proposed at my favorite restaurant, I genuinely believed I was the luckiest woman alive. My best friend since college, Bethany Rogers, had squealed louder than I did when I showed her the ring. She'd insisted on being my maid of honor immediately. I'd met Bethany freshman year when we were randomly assigned as roommates. She was studying communications while I buried myself in accounting textbooks. Where I was cautious and practical, she was spontaneous and magnetic. We balanced each other perfectly, or so I thought. Over a decade of friendship, we'd shared everything: apartment leases, breakup ice cream, career victories, and endless late-night conversations about our futures. The morning after Tyler's text, I called him 17 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. I drove to his apartment, but his car was gone. His roommate answered the door looking uncomfortable, mumbling something about Tyler staying with a friend for a few days. I texted him again, keeping my tone measured. "We need to talk about this in person. Please call me." Nothing. I called Bethany, my voice finally cracking as I explained what happened. She arrived at my apartment within the hour, clutching a bottle of wine and wearing her most sympathetic expression. We sat on my couch as I showed her the text message, looking for some hidden meaning I'd missed. "He's probably just freaking out about the wedding," she suggested, rubbing my back. "You know how men get cold feet. Give him space to process." But something felt wrong. Tyler wasn't the type to disappear without explanation. He was methodical, almost annoyingly so. He color-coded his closet and maintained detailed spreadsheets for our wedding budget. This sudden silence felt out of character, which made it more frightening. What could drive someone so organized to simply vanish? 3 days passed with no contact. I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction of quarterly reports and client meetings. My coworkers noticed my ringless finger but said nothing, their sympathetic glances speaking volumes. I checked Tyler's social media obsessively. He'd gone dark there too. No posts, no activity, nothing. Bethany checked in daily, always available with encouraging words. "He'll come around," she promised during our lunch on Thursday. "And if he doesn't, you deserve better anyway." I appreciated her loyalty even as a small voice in my head wondered why Tyler's disappearance felt so absolute. People don't just vanish from someone's life without reason. On Friday afternoon, I discovered the reason. My coworker Amanda mentioned seeing someone who looked exactly like your ex at a new wine bar downtown the previous evening. "He was with a blonde woman," she added carefully. "They seemed close." The description matched Tyler perfectly, down to the distinctive watch I'd given him for his birthday. My stomach dropped. He wasn't processing cold feet in isolation. He was out living his life, just without me in it. I drove past the wine bar that evening, hating myself for doing it but unable to stop. Tyler's car wasn't there, but the confirmation that he was out socializing while ignoring my calls made everything worse. Back home, I stared at my phone, debating whether to text him again or preserve what little dignity I had left. Then Bethany called, her voice strange. "Olivia, I need to tell you something, and you're going to hate me for not saying it sooner." My heart rate spiked. Tyler came to see me 2 weeks ago. He said he was having doubts about the wedding but asked me not to tell you because he didn't want to worry you before he figured things out. 2 weeks. He'd been planning his exit for 2 weeks while I'd been taste testing wedding cakes and addressing invitations. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice hollow. "He made me promise," she said miserably. "He said he just needed time to think, and I didn't want to cause drama if he was going to work through it. I'm so sorry, Liv." That conversation should have been my first warning sign, but I was too devastated to see it clearly. Instead, I felt betrayed on two fronts, by my fiancé and by my best friend who'd kept his doubts secret. Bethany apologized profusely, explaining she'd thought she was protecting me from unnecessary worry. "I really believed he'd come back around," she insisted. I wanted to be angry with her, but I was too exhausted. "It's fine," I lied. "You were trying to help." We agreed to get together that weekend, though I secretly craved solitude more than company. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my apartment, finally allowing myself to cry. 3 years of my life suddenly erased by a text message. 6 months of wedding planning now meaningless. The engagement ring still sat on my dresser. I hadn't been able to put it back on, but I couldn't quite bring myself to take it off either. It represented so much, not just Tyler's promise, but my own vision of my future. Without it, I had to rebuild everything I'd imagined for myself. The thought was overwhelming. Monday brought unexpected clarity. I woke up angry instead of sad, and anger felt productive. I deserved answers, and Tyler's cowardice didn't absolve him of that responsibility. I drafted a formal email, professional and direct, requesting he collect his belongings from my apartment and return the key. I also asked for half the deposits we'd made on wedding vendors, since I'd need to start making cancellation calls. To my surprise, he responded within an hour. "I'll Venmo you for the deposits. Sorry about everything. I hope you understand someday." The casual tone infuriated me. 3 years together, and this was the closure I got. A 6-sentence email and a digital payment. I screenshotted everything, some instinct telling me I might need documentation later. Bethany texted that afternoon, asking if I wanted to grab dinner. I declined, claiming I needed alone time. Truth was, her involvement in Tyler's secret weighed on me more than I wanted to admit. How long had they discussed my relationship without me? What else had she kept from me? Trust, once cracked, was hard to repair. 2 weeks after Tyler's text, I saw the Instagram post that changed everything. One of my college acquaintances had shared a photo from a dinner party, and there in the background, unmistakable even slightly out of focus, were Tyler and Bethany. They sat close together at the table, his arm casually draped across the back of her chair. The photo was tagged from 3 days ago. I stared at my phone's screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. There had to be an explanation. Maybe they'd run into each other coincidentally. Maybe Bethany was helping me by trying to talk sense into him, but the body language told a different story. They looked comfortable together, familiar. I scrolled through the acquaintance's other photos from that night. In another shot, Tyler's hand rested on Bethany's shoulder. In a third, she was laughing at something he'd said, her hand touching his arm. The timestamps showed these photos were from last Saturday, the same day Bethany had canceled our plans, claiming she had a work emergency. My hands finally started shaking as the pieces fell into place. I couldn't confront them yet. Some instinct told me to wait, to gather more information before showing my hand. I created a fake Instagram account and searched for recent photos tagged at locations I knew Tyler frequented. Within an hour, I'd found 5 more pictures featuring both of them together over the past 3 weeks. They'd been careful not to post anything themselves, but they couldn't control what other people shared. In every photo, they looked like a couple. The evidence was damning, but I needed absolute confirmation before acting. I called Tyler from my office phone, a number he wouldn't recognize. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello." His voice sounded relaxed, happy even. "Is this Tyler Morrison?" I asked, disguising my voice slightly. "Yes, who's calling?" "I'm calling from Riverside Gardens regarding your venue reservation," I continued, naming the place where he'd proposed to me. "We need to confirm some details for your upcoming event." There was a pause. "I think you have the wrong person. I haven't made any reservations there." Our records show a reservation under your name for December 14th, I pressed. Another pause. Oh, that. Yeah, we'll need to discuss that. Can I call you back? December 14th. That was 4 months away. The same month we'd originally planned to get married before pushing it to spring. My blood ran cold as I hung up without responding. Tyler hadn't just moved on. He'd moved on with someone specific, someone close enough to slot right into the life we'd been building. I spent that evening doing something I'm not proud of. I logged into the wedding planning website where Tyler and I had shared access to our vendor information. He hadn't changed the password. Under event details, he'd created a new wedding entry. Date, December 14th. Groom, Tyler Morrison. Bride, Bethany Rogers. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a rebound or a casual thing. He'd left me for her, probably had been planning it even before that text message. How long had they been seeing each other behind my back? How many times had I cried on Bethany's shoulder about Tyler's distance, while she knew exactly why he was pulling away because she was the reason? I screenshotted everything. The next morning, I called a lawyer, not to sue, but to understand my options regarding the shared deposits and the ring. In this state, the engagement ring is considered a conditional gift, she explained. If the wedding is called off by the giver, technically, he can't demand it back. I hadn't even considered he might want it, but I was glad to know where I stood legally. Then I did something calculated. I started documenting everything. Every shared expense Tyler hadn't reimbursed me for, every wedding deposit, every piece of furniture we'd bought together with my credit card that he'd promised to pay half for later. I'd been so trusting, never demanding immediate payment because we were building a life together. Now I realized I'd essentially been financing his ability to leave me. The total came to just over $12,000. Some of it was from the wedding, but most was from our shared life, furniture, electronics, a weekend trip to Portland where I'd covered everything because his bonus hadn't come through yet. Had any of it been true, or had I been his meal ticket while he planned his exit? I waited. For 3 more weeks, I waited while Tyler and Bethany apparently grew bolder. They started posting on their own social media, never together, but their stories showed matching locations at suspiciously similar times. A hiking trail, a new restaurant, the botanical gardens. Bethany still texted me regularly, asking how I was doing and offering support. "You're so strong," she wrote. "You're going to get through this." The audacity was breathtaking. I responded minimally, giving her nothing to suspect I knew. Meanwhile, I'd hired a private investigator, not for court, but for my own peace of mind. I needed to know exactly how long this had been going on. The Pies report arrived via encrypted email. Subjects have been involved in an intimate relationship for approximately 4 months based on photographic evidence and witness statements. They appear to cohabitate at the female subject's residence on weekends. 4 months. That meant it had started 2 months before Tyler sent that text. Every work dinner and networking event suddenly made sickening sense. I'd been sleeping next to him while he built a life with her. Then came the engagement announcement. Bethany posted it on a Sunday morning, a photo of her hand, with my ring design, I noted with disgust, and the caption, "Sometimes love surprises you when you least expect it." I said yes. Tyler shared it minutes later with "luckiest man alive" and a heart emoji. My phone exploded with messages from mutual friends. "OMG, did you see? Are you okay? This is so messed up." I responded to none of them. Instead, I carefully crafted my own response on social media. "Congratulations to the happy couple. I wish you both all the happiness you deserve. What a beautiful surprise." The period after surprise carried all my venom, but to anyone else it looked gracious. Bethany actually called me, crying. "Olivia, I wanted to tell you in person." This just happened so fast. Tyler and we didn't mean for this to happen, but sometimes you can't help who you fall in love with. I let her talk, offering minimal responses. "I understand," I said finally. "I hope you'll be very happy together." "You're being so amazing about this," she gushed. "I was so worried you'd hate me." Hate was too simple an emotion for what I felt. This was calculated betrayal by the 2 people I'd trusted most. They'd made a fool of me while I'd been addressing wedding invitations with both their names on them, his as my groom, hers as my maid of honor. I started planning. They'd announced their engagement so quickly because they wanted my wedding date. Based on my snooping, they'd kept most of our vendor deposits by simply transferring the contracts to their names. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, everything I'd researched and booked was now theirs. They just swapped out the bride and kept moving forward. It was efficient, I had to admit. Why waste good planning? Tyler had always been practical. The thought made me sick. I'd done all the work of planning a wedding, and Bethany was going to walk into my Pinterest boards made real. She'd probably already claimed my dress ideas, my color scheme, my carefully curated playlist. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. They saw me as the heartbroken ex who'd slink away quietly. They had no idea what I was actually capable of. I received the wedding invitations 6 weeks later. Cream cardstock with elegant script. Bethany Rogers and Tyler Morrison request the pleasure of your company. December 14th at Riverside Gardens. I almost admired the audacity. They'd invited me to watch them celebrate their betrayal in the venue where he'd proposed to me. I thought you'd want to come, Bethany had written in a handwritten note tucked inside. I know this is complicated, but you've always been my best friend. It would mean everything to have you there to support us. No hard feelings, right? The note was written in her looping handwriting on personalized stationery. She signed it with a heart over the I in her name. I RSVP'd yes. When Bethany called, surprised and delighted, I explained that I wanted to show there were no hard feelings. Life's too short for grudges, I said, channeling every acting lesson I'd never taken. You and Tyler deserve to be happy. You're truly incredible, she gushed. Seriously, Liv, you're handling this better than anyone could expect. Tyler and I are both so grateful. I started preparing my wedding gift, not the kind they were expecting. I spent weeks compiling every piece of evidence I'd gathered. Screenshots of Tyler's lies about his whereabouts, credit card statements showing he'd taken Bethany to dinner while claiming to work late on nights I'd eaten alone. The Pies report with time-stamped photos proving their affair had overlapped with our engagement. I organized it chronologically, creating a clear timeline that showed exactly when the affair had begun and how they'd systematically lied to me. I included the email where Tyler had asked me not to tell anyone about our private relationship struggles while simultaneously parading around town with Bethany. I added the text messages where Bethany had consoled me about Tyler's distance while she was the cause of it. But the centerpiece was something special, a video compilation. I'd hired a professional editor to create a side-by-side comparison. On one screen, text messages from Bethany offering support and sympathy during my breakup. On the other screen, photos of her with Tyler on those exact dates. The timestamps told the story better than words ever could. I also did something more practical. I filed in small claims court for the money Tyler owed me. The $12,000 in shared expenses he'd never reimbursed, all meticulously documented. He'd have to pay or it would affect his credit. I timed the filing for 1 week before the wedding, ensuring maximum stress. My lawyer had advised me to pursue the money through legal channels rather than counting on his decency. People who ghost their fiancés via text don't usually volunteer to pay what they owe, she'd noted dryly. She was right. Tyler had ignored my requests for reimbursement entirely, probably hoping I'd just give up. The court documents were served to him at work. According to a former coworker who'd stayed friendly with me, Tyler had looked panicked when he received the summons. He'd immediately called Bethany, speaking in hushed, urgent tones in the hallway. Good. Let them stress about more than wedding seating charts. Let them wonder what else I might do. I, meanwhile, maintained my gracious facade. I liked Bethany's wedding posts on social media. I responded to her nervous texts with reassuring messages. Don't worry about the court thing, I wrote. Tyler and I will work it out. Focus on your big day. The weeks before the wedding, I made one more move. I contacted 5 of the vendors they'd stolen from me. The ones where I'd paid deposits with my credit card before Tyler had sweet-talked them into transferring the contracts to his and Bethany's names. I'd like to dispute these charges, I told my credit card company, providing evidence that services had been transferred to different beneficiaries without my consent. The law was on my side. They'd essentially committed fraud by using my payments for their event. My card company launched investigations, and 3 of the 5 vendors suddenly demanded new deposits from Tyler and Bethany. I heard through the grapevine that they were scrambling for cash, stressed about vendors threatening to cancel days before the wedding. Bethany posted a vague status about unnecessary drama from petty people that I graciously didn't respond to. I didn't need to. The vendors did my talking for me, demanding payment or threatening to walk. They'd taken my wedding blueprint and thought they could erase me from it completely. Now they were learning that erasing someone meant also erasing their financial contributions. I hadn't paid for their love story. I'd paid for mine. The day before the wedding, I wrapped my gift. I'd created a beautiful presentation, a leather portfolio with the compiled evidence, the video on a USB drive, and a letter I'd written explaining exactly how their betrayal had unfolded from my perspective. I wrote it without anger, just cold, factual recitation of dates, events, and lies. But I didn't send it to them. That would be too easy, too private. Instead, I arranged for it to be delivered to the venue on the wedding day, with instructions to place it with the other gifts. The portfolio was wrapped in elegant paper that matched their wedding colors. A nice touch, I thought. The card read, "To new beginnings and honest foundations. May you always be as transparent with each other as you were with me." I also hired a videographer. Not to film the wedding, I wasn't a monster, but to be present in the parking lot, ready to capture Tyler and Bethany's reactions when they opened my gift at the reception. The videographer thought I was crazy until I explained the situation. Then she offered to do it for half her normal rate. "This is the kind of karma documentation I can get behind," she'd said with a grin. I didn't attend the wedding. Despite my RSVP, I spent that December 14th at a spa resort 3 hours away, treating myself to every service they offered. I'd earned it. While Tyler and Bethany exchanged vows in the venue where he'd proposed to me, I got a hot stone massage. While they took photos with the photographer I'd researched and booked, I sat in a mineral pool drinking champagne. My phone stayed off until evening. I'd given the videographer my email address with instructions to send footage if anything interesting happened. I didn't know if they'd open gifts at the reception or wait until later, but either way, I'd know eventually. The truth had a way of surfacing, and I'd made sure it surfaced in the most public way possible. When I finally turned on my phone at 8 p.m., I had 63 messages. My heart rate spiked as I scrolled through them. "OMG, what did you do?" Tyler just freaked out at the reception. "Bethany is crying in the bathroom." "Security escorted someone out." "This is the craziest wedding I've ever attended." The videographer's email arrived at 8:47 p.m. with the subject line, "You're going to want to see this." I opened it on my laptop, my hands trembling slightly with anticipation. The video was 23 minutes long. I made myself comfortable and pressed play. The footage started with Tyler and Bethany at the gift table during the reception, surrounded by bridesmaids and groomsmen. They were laughing, clearly happy, as they began opening presents. Standard wedding gifts appeared first: kitchen appliances, picture frames, envelope cards. Then Tyler picked up my portfolio, commenting on the expensive wrapping. Bethany read the card aloud, her voice light and joking. "To new beginnings and honest foundations. May you always be as transparent with each other as you were with me." "That's weird phrasing," one bridesmaid commented. Tyler shrugged and opened it. His expression changed immediately as he saw the first page, a printed screenshot of text messages between him and Bethany from 4 months ago, with dates circled in red. I watched his face drain of color as he flipped through the pages, each one revealing another piece of their deception. Bethany grabbed the portfolio from his hands, her eyes scanning the contents. Her mouth fell open as she reached the timeline I'd created, a detailed chart showing every date Tyler had claimed to be working late versus every date the pie had photographed him with her. Someone asked what was wrong. Tyler tried to close the portfolio, but Bethany had found the USB drive. "What's on this?" she demanded. Before Tyler could stop her, one of the groomsmen, clearly drunk and unhelpfully helpful, grabbed the drive and plugged it into the laptop they'd been using to play their wedding playlist. The video I'd created began playing on the screen they'd set up for their photo slideshow. I watched through the videographer's lens as their wedding reception crowd fell silent, staring at the damning side-by-side comparison of Bethany's sympathetic texts to me next to photos of her with Tyler on those same dates. The video was only 5 minutes long, but it was devastating. It ended with a simple text overlay. "The truth always comes out. I hope your marriage is built on honesty." The aftermath unfolded like a car crash in slow motion. Bethany's mother stood up, her voice sharp. "You two were together while he was engaged to Olivia," Tyler tried to explain, his words tumbling over each other, but the evidence spoke louder than his excuses. Several guests started gathering their belongings to leave. One of Bethany's bridesmaids, her cousin, based on the earlier introductions, turned on her. "You helped me through my divorce while you were home-wrecking someone else's relationship." Tyler's best man tried to calm things down, suggesting they move the gift opening to private. But the damage was done. The video had shown approximately 80 wedding guests exactly who they'd celebrated. Bethany was crying, her makeup running. Tyler looked furious, scanning the room as if I might be hiding in a corner. I wasn't. I was 3 hours away, watching their perfect day crumble via live stream. The videographer had caught the moment security approached Tyler to ask if there was a problem. He'd pointed at the screen, demanding they find whoever was responsible. But there was no one to find, just a gift that told an unfortunate truth. The video ended with Tyler and Bethany leaving their own reception early, her dress trailing behind her as they rushed toward the exit. Several guests followed them out, voices raised in argument. The videographer had captured one final exchange, Bethany's father confronting Tyler in the parking lot, demanding to know if the evidence was accurate. "It's not what it looks like," Tyler had tried. "Olivia is just bitter and trying to ruin our day." But Bethany's father had looked at his daughter with something like disappointment. "Is it true? Were you two together while he was with her?" Bethany's silence had been answer enough. I closed my laptop and lay back on the spa's comfortable bed. I felt lighter than I had in months. This wasn't about revenge, though I couldn't deny the satisfaction. It was about truth. They'd built their relationship on my humiliation, on lies told to me and about me. They'd expected me to disappear quietly, to let them rewrite history where I was the problem that Tyler had escaped. Instead, I'd made sure everyone knew exactly what they'd done and who they really were. 3 days after the wedding, Bethany called me from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "You destroyed my wedding," she said, her voice hoarse from crying. "You humiliated us in front of everyone we know." I let the silence hang for a moment before responding. "I gave you a gift of truth. You two built your relationship on lies. I just made sure everyone knew what foundation your marriage actually stands on." "We didn't mean to hurt you," she tried. "It just happened." "Nothing just happens, Bethany. You made choices. So did Tyler. You chose to betray me, to lie to me, to steal my wedding plans and act like I'd simply disappeared. I just made sure there were consequences for those choices." She hung up. I heard later that they'd canceled their honeymoon, partly because of vendor disputes, partly because their families were demanding answers they weren't ready to give. My small claims court date was still pending, and Tyler's lawyer had already reached out about settling to avoid further public embarrassment. I'd lost a fiancé and a best friend, but I'd gained something more valuable, absolute clarity about who they were and what I deserved. I hadn't been left behind, I'd been set free, and I'd made sure the truth came with me.